Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, everybody. I want to share some information with you, and it's about something that can really help you out or even help out a loved one. It's helped me out in the past. I'm talking about hypnosis, and there are so many myths about hypnotherapy. We're going to dispel all of those today and give you some insight, some information, courtesy of Mary Kacaba, and she is a certified clinical hypnotherapist, and she joins us today. Hi, Mary. How are you doing?
Really well, Steve. And you?
I'm doing great, doing fantastic. I had a hypnotherapy session. It was before you and I met.
Okay.
About 6 weeks ago, somewhere along the way there, and so beneficial. It was even one session, and I went back to my childhood. I knew some things were there that I wanted to identify and work on. And I've always listened to all those myths, you know, how somebody gets hypnotized with, you know, you're getting sleepy, or I'm sure you've heard them all, or, right? Or people think you can take a credit card number. All not. Why don't we go through some of the myths that you always hear, Mary?
Well, people ask me, are you going to make me cluck like a chicken or bark like a dog or do anything against my will or expose some secrets that I'm holding sacred or close to my chest? I'm going to control their minds or control their bodies. I might not bring them back out of a state of hypnotherapy and kind of leave them reeling. And of course, none of those things are true. And the hypnotherapy process is unique to each person, and it accesses the power and the intensity of our subconscious minds, which are like the libraries of our experiences. So you want to go to the library and check in with the depths of yourself and the uniqueness of yourself. And that's what I love to help people do day in and day out is do an inner inquiry. And from that comes the freedom and clarity that you were just referencing, like you experience for yourself. And it's fast. It's not as lengthy as traditional therapy, oftentimes at least. And I will often tell my clients one session, a couple sessions. I have a 3-session package and a 6-session package. So it's very direct, it's very personalized, and it's very effective.
Yeah, it's almost like a laser beam into a type of therapy. Like you're centering on what somebody wants to accomplish. And I don't want to take anything away from, you know, traditional counseling and therapy. That's all good too.
Oh, absolutely. It's necessary. And I
Sure.
find that my clients that have had traditional therapy really do make greater strides through the process,
Yep.
and even really across the board, even those that aren't interested in traditional therapy really make great advancements and feel more heard and feel more in, I really talk about it being in communion with yourself, or even in union with yourself if you're not so related to, some of the spiritual terms.
Sure. Yeah. Doesn't matter what I believe in, but I like to go by the universe. You know, there's this big thing out there. This is the universe, and we're all part of it. And it's like puzzles that have to work together. But once you identify, and let's go back to the subconscious thing. Once you identify what's going on up here that you might not even know about, it could be something that happened in your childhood that's profoundly changed you or maybe put up roadblocks. You're not going to know until you do some kind of hypnotherapy. When I did it, I was in full control. That's another myth. Like, yeah, I just want to get that out there. Like I could have stopped right like that. Yeah, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to. It was like watching my childhood on TV.
Wow, yeah.
I think that's the best description. And I knew where I was going to go, Mary. I knew the different places I wanted to see, but I saw them with much more clarity.
Well, I think revisiting those times in your past from a more adult space that you're in now can be helpful and can be really the key to being the transformative shift that you were most likely seeking.
Yeah.
And then I tell my clients that you might feel like you've got one foot in my office and one foot in what I call your inner world. And you're going to remember everything that goes on in the session.
Yep.
And there are many of my clients that think, well, I didn't really go deep enough. And that kind of goes back to some of their expectations or even preconceived notions about not remembering anything, or feeling like they have to give over their control to me, which many of my clients are out of control. So I say, I'm going to help you get a hold of yourself authentically and genuinely from the inside out, so that you can engage in your life more in a more meaningful fashion.
Just what you said, I'm sure a lot of people have a certain expectation and think, like you just said, Mary, where it's like, well, I got hypnotized. I felt like I was in a, different state, but okay, so what? But I don't think people realize it's like taking a stone and dropping it in a pond, and those ripples go out in your subconscious mind, and they're doing things, that you might not realize it, but it is making a difference. How about some success stories with people that you've worked with?
Well, one of my favorites is a Delta pilot who was actually afraid of heights of all things. But if you really look more deeply, at least in his session, it was about him being afraid of heights and having gone to the edge of a large crater when he was a small child. And his father kind of forced him to the edge of the drop off, and like, be a man, and you're safe here, I'll hold your hand, come on, and really coaxed him beyond his level of comfort. And as a pilot, he knew that when he flew the plane, he was in control.
Ah,
And yet, on the edge of even going up an escalator, even going into an elevator, and was very threatening to him. And he employed me by saying, Mary, I won this trip to Paris, and my wife is going, and she wants to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower. And he said, I'm scared, I can't do it, I'm going to have a panic attack. And sure enough, we did the session, and he called me from the top of the Eiffel Tower.
wow.
It's one of my favorite stories. And another favorite story was a woman who had agoraphobia, which is a phobia of leaving your home. So she
Hmm.
was pretty much homebound for a couple of years. And through the process of looking how she could learn to keep herself safe, how she could learn to address some of the anxiety and panic and even depression that she was feeling lodged in the cells of her body. So we address those things, and I do what's called a rescue mission. So I helped rescue her, and she helped rescue her own inner child. Speaking of going back to your childhood. And from that sense of feeling safe and rescued and united with her own adult self, she could ensure that she was safe and could, maneuver through life, leave the house, drive. She called me from her honeymoon hot tub.
Wow.
Like, she met a guy, got married, and I said, "Wait a minute, you just got married earlier today." "Yeah, Mary, I'm in the hot tub." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." She said, "Thank you." So I've
Love
received
it.
many accolades, and it's just it's so enriching, and it's so meaningful to me to be a part of helping people enjoy themselves and feel empowered and feel whole rather than fragmented, or even losing parts of themselves that they've not been able to retrieve and really nurture well.
Your passion comes through in such a big way. And
Yeah.
those stories, yeah, that's amazing. I tell people after my experience, like, why not just do it? And sometimes they have a block. I don't know, hypnotherapy, really? Like, no, you're not, you're missing out. You really need to try it for uh, smoking, anxiety, weight issues. It can work for that. And what are some of the other things that you found that hypnotherapy is effective for?
For sleep disorders,
Hmm.
for pain management, for fears, phobias, all kinds of different kinds of addictions. If you have issues with self esteem, I've had many a professional come to me and say, I want to ask my boss for a promotion, or I'm up for a promotion. And they're scared. They freeze, their limiting beliefs kind of rush in, and then they cower. They don't speak fluidly. They don't represent themselves in a confident, secure way, which is really who they are most of the time until the push comes to shove. And so I love to work with people, helping them access, their worthiness and access their strengths and abilities and what they can bring to the table. And I help professionals step into their power and into their creativity and help realize their dreams. And it's just so rewarding because I kind of live vicariously through, who's going to surgery that had a needle phobia, or who is, going on a date when they've lost weight, and they've felt worthless, or they've felt fearful, or they've been abused or misused and had tremendous amount of trauma or drug addiction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love how I help people travel, for people that have smoked a lot and they take that money that they've been investing in their cigarettes or cigars or vaping, and they go on vacations. I've gotten some postcards from faraway places, and it's just fun to see people standing up for themselves in court, in divorce court. I'm not a victim, and
Wow.
it spans the gamut. And I help people deal with medical procedures, get dentures or get a new crown and not have a panic attack, get a hip replacement, get a knee replacement, and they feel just grateful that they've had the courage that they've found deeply within their soul, really, and in their cellular makeup. So I really
Fantastic.
help them check in with themselves to be able to achieve whatever they're going to do.
Let's talk about the subconscious mind. I've often heard that what you experience as a child between 0 and 7 really kind of dictates your life. And you just mentioned self-esteem. I recently heard between the ages of 2, 3, 3.5, somewhere in that territory, that is a marker for your self-esteem. How crazy as it might be, but that can be something that changes your life as you moved, older, later in life. Have you heard? Is it 0 to 7? Am I right about
It
that?
is 0 to 7. Yes.
Wow.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Yes.
So that being said, do you find that you take a lot of people back to their childhood?
Oh, many people.
Yeah.
I regress them back to their childhood. And some people say, well, I had a good childhood, except for the bullying, you
Yeah.
know, or I had a good childhood, except my mom and my dad worked, and the neighbor down the street that was, 75 years old took care of us, and we ran free. And then they had no boundaries.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
were just free for all. And now when it comes time to be orderly or to be organized or to be responsible or accountable, it does go back to our childhoods, very much so.
Could you imagine if the entire population had hypnotherapy and went
I,
back? Oh my gosh, what a world we'd be living in. Like
yes, yes, we
right?
would be well, we would be empowered, we would
Hmm.
feel complete, we would feel whole, we would be good communicators, we would be loving, we'd be accepting. Yeah, we
Yeah,
wouldn't be stuck. And if we were feeling those things, because we are humans, we would at least feel vulnerable enough and open enough to feel like we could share ourselves and accept ourselves and not hide and pretend and put on, pretenses. And yeah, that big mess, going down that road can be very disheartening and disempowering. And it can lead to depression
sure.
and anxiety, and it can put us in a reeling downward cycling of grief, which is something I help a lot of people with, especially through the pandemic.
Mm, point. Very strong
Really
point. Oh my.
deep, deep grieving.
And even the anxiety since the, COVID situation has been, I'm sure as you've in your practice, you find it's escalated that people are on. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
It's
It's
like,
It's almost like a reset button, when you're hypnotized. And to the point before about hearing something that's made a difference in your life, you could be a child, right? And you might have heard somebody pass a comment. You were 4 years old, and maybe you thought it was for you, but it was for somebody else in the room,
Yeah.
stuck with you. And it's changed you to the point where now you don't do certain things, or you're afraid to do certain things, but maybe you don't even know it. Do you find that when you take somebody back, you discover what the issues are?
Yes, I have a client that I'm working with now who is experiencing a lot of sibling rivalry, but he and his siblings are in their 40s and their
Wow.
father just died, just made his transition. And so now there's a vying for power and a vying for leadership in the family, and my client has been taking some risks to talk to his older brother about things he swears he remembers vividly from his childhood. And this, my particular client, is a college graduate with multiple degrees, and he still doesn't feel like he's smart enough.
Wow.
And he did overhear some conversations and about his parents, comparing him to his other siblings, to his really smart sister and to his athletic older brother, which kind of left him feeling um, inadequate. And he was a much smaller build, and he wasn't naturally athletic, and he's more into music, and he's a wonderful artist, and he's kind of got some effeminate characteristics, although he is heterosexual. And not that if he was a gay man, that would be fine too, or any of the other 72 genders that are
Sure.
uh, recently identified, or at least in my world, I'm really welcoming all genders and respecting all people deeply and profoundly.
People are people, and we're all going through something. And for anybody out there that says, well, I'm fine, everything's great, you're lying.
Right.
I just, I'm the one that points out the elephant in the room. It's the truth. There's
Right.
everybody, even if somebody says, my family's great, we have no issues, I seriously doubt that. There's always something going on, within our lives. And once you identify it, or at least take the steps to identify it, to heal yourself. Mary, give your website. If somebody wants to reach out to you and do a session and learn some more, where do they go?
My website is www.resourceswithin.com. I've named my business Resources Within because
Hmm.
it's all about connecting with the resources within you. And there's a host of resources within you that are related to the conscious mind, and even more so, those resources within you related to the subconscious mind. And any kind of injury or um, any kind of wounds that you may be harboring, that's where I come in. I can help you mend and heal and transform those wounds so that you can access your resources within, on demand. Like, oh, wait a minute. I know that I'm worthy of this, or I know that I can accomplish this, and I know that I can focus and own my own worth and concentrate and carry out whatever it is that I want to do, you know?
Wow. So
No matter how you stand with other people, it doesn't matter.
is that
You
is
do
that true?
you.
Do you find that though? Like, you can, once you help somebody, that they can tap into their subconscious, or just tap into the within, to move their lives forward, on demand, shall we say? Let's say a
Right,
situation
on
comes up.
demand. Yeah, I sometimes I say, I'm going to help you fall in love with yourself.
Hmm.
And because sometimes there's things that we just can't accept. The unforgivable of the unforgivable, and regrets that really undermine us, and a saboteur, even a form of self sabotage that is, guiding us off course, can be so frustrating because we do it to ourselves. I have it out for myself, Mary. I feel like I'm, on the cross, or I'm literally yesterday. I had a client say, you need to save me from the depths of hell. And so, what do I do in the session? I guide him back to validating that there he is in the depths of hell. I don't disregard it. I don't say, no, let's just, gloss it over. You're going to be happy. You're stepping out of hell. No, let's go to hell.
Wow.
Go deep into the energy of hell. What does that feel like? Does it feel familiar? Oh, it feels familiar, like when my dad left home, or when he left me on the softball field when I struck out, or when I couldn't do a cartwheel, or I couldn't add. I didn't add something correctly on the board when I was in, when I was in seventh grade or when I was in third grade.
Wow.
And then we get out. I helped him out of hell. I helped him come to understand that he is worth investing in, that he is in charge. And sometimes there's grief, as I mentioned before. Sometimes there's such intense emotions that will do anything to run from them or wall them off, really wall them off. So then I do what's called the wall and the guard, and we hire the guard. Sometimes we hire the guard to keep us safe from behind the wall. So I'm very compassionate,
You
and I
are.
love to help people get really big courage and get fed up with how their lives are. They're underperforming, they're discouraged, they're bored, they're getting heavier, they're getting more disconnected from themselves, and they're being meaner to other people. It's just sad to see.
I was just going to use that word. It is sad. And a lot of it is not their fault, not our fault. It's the way we were raised. And unfortunately, even as a parent, when I now realize, the 0 to 7 thing, wish I could go back and think of those things that maybe I did as a parent that I should have done or should have done better, but we don't know. And guess what? Our parents did the same thing. Their parents did the same thing. And it's kind of I guess, a generational thing, right?
Yes, we've definitely come a long way in our parenting styles. I think just as a community, and as a people. Yeah,
Yeah.
raise consciousness. I think we've really stepped it up, but there's still such dysfunction. Oh, it's still running rampant,
Yep.
you know, and people need to be heard and loved and affirmed and listened to and encouraged and noticed what's going on. Yeah, because we have so much potential. We're amazing people.
We are.
We're kick butt people, and we have so much to give. But sometimes we, put blinders on, or we just dumb ourselves down, and it's no fun.
Well, when you think about it, the subconscious is doing everything, but the conscious is what, like 10% of what we're doing. We have a question, instant feedback, steve@gmail.com if you want to reach us. Kelly is in Hamden, Connecticut. She says, I think I have a fear of abandonment that may go back to my parents getting divorced when I was much younger. Can hypnotherapy help me with that?
Absolutely. Yes, there are ways to be able to go and reconnect with the child in you that remembers that abandonment, that remembers that feeling. And sometimes those feelings are so raw and right on the surface.
Mm.
And other times those feelings are in lockdown. I mean, just even disassociation and thinking, well, I fared through that time, or I weathered that storm, and, my parents both love me, and we try to justify, you know, and that doesn't fill the bill
Yeah.
when we
Yep.
look at the preciousness of our hearts. And sometimes people will have heart attacks or have irritable bowel because they don't digest stuff. There's unfinished business that's
Yeah.
churning around in the chemicalogical energy in our bodies, and it can come out through our digestion, it can
Oh,
come
yeah.
out through all
Oh,
different forms of our health and
you're
well-being.
you're so on target, Mary. It's you
Oh,
really
wow.
are. No, you know your stuff, and
I do.
Take it from an ulcer sufferer from about 5 years ago.
Oh,
Why? Because of, anxiety, stress, and a lot of that. And, I'll let it go and everything's good. But hypnotherapy is
yeah.
one thing that can make a big difference. Again, your website, tell everybody how they can connect with you.
Resourceswithin.com. And my direct phone number is 513-675-1120. I'm out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And I also do Zoom and Skype sessions along with in-person sessions in my office in Cincinnati, Ohio. I do group sessions. I do group presentations. I love
Yeah.
to do the whole thing. And in the single session, I do a 3-hour session.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it's lengthy. It's because people have a lot of stuff going on. Sometimes I call it the 7-layer salad. It's like, oh my goodness. There's a lot there, and I like to take quality time and address the layers in a very gentle, genuine way so that you can really be present with yourself and see what in the heck's going on in there, so that you can mend and heal and address the abandonment, or to address whatever it is that's gurgling up to the surface. And you can also email me to Mary Kacaba, that's MaryKacaba @gmail.com.
Mary, great talking with you today. And thank you for the insight. And I just love your passion. It just comes through. And just the story about the Delta pilot, again, pilot who's afraid of heights, and him calling you from the Eiffel Tower when he broke that fear of heights thanks to you. Just it says it all right there. And there's a reason that people call you and let you know about their success, because you're part of their lives. It's like you're their friend. Thanks for being with us. I look forward to getting together with you again soon.
Thanks, Steve. So do I.
Thank you, Mary. All right,
Take care.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.